Alright, so if you're a wrestling fan and you've been online for some time now, you may have come across a recent trend back in February that goes by WWE Women Deserve Better. The IWC has been pretty vocal about their feelings towards WWE's booking decisions for their women's roster, or lack of. And lately, I've been wondering if Triple H's Rule of Five for their PLE has been contributing to the shortcomings of the women's talent. I mean, it's hard to believe that the storylines just haven't been believable enough to justify the absence from this division. Or have they? I mean, what about this year's releases of talent? Was it because they just didn't do well in front of a crowd? Or was it to make room for the next wave of NXT call-ups? WWE's third brand NXT has been garnering monumental success because of their women's division alone, with many calling it the best in pro wrestling. So why is that? What makes NXT so much more successful in this department? It looks like this new discourse online comes from frustration not just from the IWC, but from the main roster as well. I want to dive into these grievances, and I want to know if they carry any weight. To do that, we gotta understand a few things first. So what is the IWC, and why is it important? Let's find out. The IWC stands for Internet Wrestling Community, referring to a group of online fans who discuss, analyze, and often debate various aspects of the industry, including storylines, talent, and behind-the-scenes issues. Figuratively, a subreddit unleashed that reaches all corners of the internet, especially on X. So why does the IWC even matter at all? Well, naturally, as with any fandom, they form the narrative based on what they interpret. They see one superstar rise above another and politics are being played, or Triple H hates their guts. Either way, they're attuned to what they're watching and they're breaking down things super closely. And they noticed something was off. So the IWC took to X with hashtag WWE Women Deserve Better when they noticed failed characters and confusing storylines. Fans just weren't happy when they noticed that the brand new women's mid-card titles were being used as an afterthought in comparison to the men's championships. For example, the women's inaugural Intercontinental Championship match was pushed back from the Raw on Netflix premiere in order to make room for the men's segments and men's matches. It just doesn't put the best optics on the division when things like this happen. Additionally, there has been an outcry from fans to feature women's matches for the main event slots for WrestleMania 41 this year. And what does Chief Content Officer of WWE have to say about this?
I believe that for talent, that's the best way to do it. Let everybody fight over the spot.
Naturally, there are two sides to this. One where let the best man or woman win is the rightful direction and approach. The other takes into account recent action by the company where multiple female superstars were released, leaving storylines feeling jaded and incomplete. So how are the current surviving superstars supposed to fight for the best spot on the grandest stage of them all? Now at this point, I was seeing this as mere internet outrage and smart paranoia. That's when I decided to dive in a little deeper, and I noticed something else. Per Fightful.com, several WWE women's talent spoke out and described their frustrations regarding lack of development, screen time, and even the tag team division, which, believe you me, is a whole other can of worms. Now I know what you may be thinking is that the same can be said about the men's division too, right? I mean, fair point. I'm sure Akira Tozawa and Santos Escobar are wondering when is it going to be their time on TV. But what makes this issue different from the men's division is that women in WWE have always had to fight for their time in the spotlight. Now, don't get me wrong, the women's division now is the best it's ever been by a wide margin. But if we look at a time where bra and panties matches got the most attention and one fall matches were deemed as concession standpoints, we can almost still see what's happening today. Women struggling to break through a glass ceiling. Just a different stain. Again, the women's division, for all intents and purposes, is the best it's ever been. Women are competing in the main event matches and their storylines are more involved and focused. But internally, there are superstars who feel a sort of rinse and repeat cycle happening with current storylines and a lack of priority to try anything new. While it's safe to say that the entire women's division doesn't feel this way as a whole, the portion that have noticed an issue stem it down to what they see on WWE's third brand, NXT. NXT has what most would argue the best women's division in all of professional wrestling. As wonderful as that is, why is a developmental promotion being used to offer the best of the best rather than on the main roster shows of Raw and SmackDown? I mean, is it because of the lack of talent? I mean, if you consider stars like Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, and so on, they all came from NXT. No, to me, this is a strategy used in order to keep eyes on the product and carve out their cornerstone of their brand. It's okay that the developmental brand is featuring the best of something. I mean, call-ups are a thing, and when one superstar exits, another one takes their place. So is there a problem with the women's division in WWE? Well, that depends on who you ask. There's always going to be complaints and concerns that come from the fans, but things start to feel different when those sentiments start to align with feelings coming from the women's locker room. To re-emphasize, the women's division in WWE is the best it's ever been as a whole. Rhetoric that stems from online tends to seek a problem rather than look at the whole picture. I highly doubt that Triple H is planning his day-to-day agenda to destroy a division that has such immense support from live attendance fans. Nonetheless, a division he firmly believes in, referring to it as a division that holds generational talent, that make generational talent. That said, it's usually worth keeping an eye on these sort of trends, whether they're hurting superstars or helping superstars as they're presented on TV, as there are a lot more eyes watching now, and social media weighs a ton. The idea that the women's division in the WWE is struggling mostly comes from the online community's own heated rhetoric, but that doesn't mean that there's not any truth to it. There's definitely room for improvement, like creating more focused storylines that actually use new and existing talent, especially if even a few from the locker room are vocal about it. So in this case, we have to trust the process. Triple H is a long game player, and there are so many moving parts in the WWE that not everyone is going to get a chance to shine in the same way. It doesn't mean the division is cooked, it just means we don't know the plan yet. So while the WWE Women Deserve Better hashtag may spark just simple debate online, it also serves as a reminder that the fight for equality in wrestling is far from over. Whether it's marks on the internet or coming from the locker room themselves, these voices are shaping the future of this division. And that's a story worth watching.